Welcome, guys, to the Permanent Peace and Transcending Cognitive Dissonance webinar. In the video that sent you here, I had spoken about the two principles that can solve any problem. One is knowing yourself, and the second one, which is the most tricky, is staying true to yourself. I said that we would be going into greater detail about that, and here we are. So, getting started. Cognitive dissonance, we all have it, we all experience it, and it contributes to a lot of disruption of our inner peace and sense of that, which is the source of a lot of strife and arguably all the strife that we experience in our life. So where does it come from? Origins of cognitive dissonance. Well, I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but cognitive dissonance, for those of you who don't know, it is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. So when things don't match up with how we interact with our world and what we experience versus what we truly believe, I know these are kind of lofty, intangible concepts, but they really do leak out into how we experience things and why we are in pain about the things that happen within our world that we are not really happy about. So where does this cognitive dissonance come from? So from the ages of birth to about 7, kids don't really have much of a filter. We're like giant sponges soaking up everything, good and bad. So we got the whole totality of everything that was around us. We didn't have the filters to be like, this is bad, this probably isn't the best or healthiest for us. So it just goes in there and it's, knocking around in our subconscious, which, by the way, is 95% of our total consciousness. And that governs everything that we experience and how we interpret it, how we feel, the life patterns and stuff that we experience when we feel stuck or chasing our own tail. That's that programming. It's the result of that. And that can be very intimidating, thinking that 95% of the total consciousness is actually subconscious. But the good news is that you can reprogram it, and this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So moving on, these filters, or lack of filters, I guess, this programming that you get within the ages of birth and to age of 7, it programs the 4 pillars of your life: health, wealth, concepts of relationships and friendships, and most importantly, like your sense of self. Like, what are you here to do? Your purpose, your passions. And it also goes directly into how you deal with things when seeming problems arise. Like, how do you perceive them and how do you act? How do you cope with them, or lack thereof? And then later on, as we grow up and as we start to interact with the world more, it gets reinforced by the external world, and there's a lot of crossover in how we are programmed because of certain cultures, like here in Western culture, for instance, like it's not okay for men to cry, kind of concept. That's just one out of millions, but it's an example. And these things get reinforced, and they're kind of unspoken, and after a while we don't really question them, and also, especially because they were instilled so young, we don't really question them, and they can start to bleed out into all 4 pillars of our lives and start to kind of wreak havoc. So with our cycle of life experience, our belief structures dictate our actions. How we act in the world is a direct product of the beliefs that we hold. And a lot of them, once again, going back to the ages where we were programmed and we just didn't question because we were so young. We just didn't think. We accepted it at face value, and that became our world. So our actions that we make based off of these beliefs create the circumstances that we experience. So this creates a feedback cycle, if you will, because the circumstances that happen start to reinforce and or create, if you're, you know, actively rewiring your brain and rewiring your programming, so to speak, these reinforce your beliefs. And so whatever experiences, circumstances, context that you find yourself in will start to form your beliefs, which then, you know, therefore goes back into action. And so this is a cycle. And, you know, it can end up being like, or feeling much like you're on a hamster wheel of doom if you have poor programming. So, what we're going to do in this webinar is tell you how to circumvent that weird feedback that keeps you feeling like you're chasing your tail, keeps you in pain, keeps you stuck. So, cycles above and below 200. So this is a similar concept. It's goes directly into it. Dr. David Hawkins is a psychiatrist who was really well known for his studies in kinesiology, which a great deal of kinesiology has to do with muscle testing, which is pretty crazy. You can muscle test the truthfulness of anything. Like basically your body is a human lie detector test. And as long as you don't have like a specific attachment to the outcome or the answer of what it is that you're trying to figure out, as long as you maintain neutrality, your body will either find out what is truthful and what is falsehood, as well as what is life affirming and what is detrimental to your health. And what is interesting about David Hawkins' studies is the concept of the calibration. Within this realm of Newtonian duality, he figured out that there's actually a numeric calibration scale that you can muscle test anything and it will have a number to it that kind of ties into its vibrational content or its frequency. So it has a number to it, and depending on how high or low the number is, it really dictates how beneficial or detrimental whatever it is that you're testing is to you personally, and on a human level. So 200 and below are it's all the ego traits, all the things that are, you know, fear, hatred, concepts of lack. Shame is really low on the scale there, but all these things: fear, sadness, grief, hatred, jealousy, all these things are 200 and below ego traits, and 200 and above are life affirming. So we want to get to 200 and above. 500 is actually love. 540 is unconditional love. 600 is enlightenment. And between 600 and 1,000 are variations of enlightenment before you reach 1,000, where the world that you experience, this Newtonian world, actually ceases to exist. It kind of starts to dissipate. And it's not very often. I mean, I could speak on forever about this kind of stuff, but keeping it on topic, the totality of our existence is teetering on 200. I know it looks crazy right now. There's like a lot of, you see so much crap on media, and most of it's negative. And, but there's good things happening. It's just that people aren't really showing it as much. But this is where it's up to us, because we don't have that much control. Like I also said in my other video, we don't have that many choices at any given moment in time. But making the correct choices in the present moment and being mindful is where the actual power lies. So lasting inner peace is dependent on your belief structure. And so this kind of kicks it off as to this whole webinar is all about your belief structure, questioning the programming that we were instilled with at a young age that we just didn't question, and now it's starting to mess with our lives and how we experience things. So, how to fix problems. First one, the easier one, know yourself. So, the first step, the cornerstone of knowing yourself, is meditation. Meditation is absolutely crucial. We always make, I don't know, we have these predispositions, I guess, so to speak, especially in Western America. We have aversions to it because there's been like this whole new age movement, and we have all these misconceptions about it that don't help us out at all. And it ranges from anything from mental predisposition, feeling like you have to have some sort of predisposition to meditate, which is not true. It's really just kind of an emptying your mind, taking out the garbage. Also, the concept of taking time, which is also like a belief structure too. We don't feel like it provides any value, especially from like a Western approach. We're instilled that if we're not actively doing something, we're not doing anything, and we're being lazy, and that's not actually helping. It just adds to the crap. So when we're wondering why we can't sleep at night because our minds are running, really has to do with if we don't have a set meditation practice that is consistent, this is going to happen. And misconceptions of what it's actually for. People think that with meditation you have to, kind of wrangle your mind kind of deal. You have to wrestle it to the ground, and that's not the case. Really, it is about observing what's in your mind, what actually comes up, and getting the totality of, taking inventory of like how you feel, what's going on inside. So anyways, this is just a general overview. We'll go deeper into these later on. But also, your sense of purpose, knowing what it is that you're here for. Meditation can reinforce this. It can help you realize what it is that you're here for, what means something to you. And mindfulness, how you interact in your world. So meditation and purpose are kind of like, the inner work that you do, the contemplation, the observance, so to speak. But mindfulness is how you take the meditation and purpose and you create a meditative existence in your external world, how you act in the world in a mindful, meditative kind of way, and observing your external world as symbols, which is merely like just what it is, symbols. Interpretations. It doesn't matter how left brain logical you are. We are beings of interpretation. We have to be able to gauge and interpret contexts. Otherwise, it doesn't, we can't necessarily ensure our survival. So anyways, moving on to the final one, humility. This one is a loaded one, and that's why I put it up here, is a lot of people don't have a full grasp on humility. And a lot of times we have the crappy programming of concepts of egotism and being selfish and thinking that we shouldn't be great, that we don't equal anything, and that we can't contribute anything of substance because, if we are stepping into our true selves and being great, stepping into our greatness, that we're being, arrogant or, I don't know, showing off or doing anything like that. So really, we'll go into that in more detail later on. So the trickier parts is being true to yourself. So taking out the garbage, which kind of has to do with meditation too, but it is concepts of light or heavy. It's really as simple as that. It's taking inventory of your life, your experiences, The context that you find yourself in, the people that you're surrounded by, do they help you or do they hurt you? Are they causing a lot of like strife and pain? Are they causing agitation? And are they making you tired? Do they invigorate you? Like what's going on? And it's really about taking out the garbage, really releasing with love the things that don't work anymore, and realizing your limitations and valuing yourself, valuing your lines in the sand, so to speak, that you are starting to value and realize that it's okay to have boundaries, and in fact very necessary, and that your peace of mind is of utmost importance, and nobody else will cultivate that for you. You have to do it for yourself. And the other thing too, next one, processing grief. So this kind of goes more into the realm of, all right, so you know your purpose, you are, you've got all your ducks in a row, you've got everything mapped out. You take that step, and a lot of time life just sucker punches you. And like we've all had this where we're just like, you know what, this is good, everything's awesome, I'm gonna do this, and I feel pumped, and it's gonna be awesome. And life is just like, nope, no, it's not. And we don't take it very well. Oftentimes, as humans, we take our failures so close to heart, way more than we do our successes. We tend to throw our victories away, like, they don't mean much, because we have this programming of not being good enough, pulling ourselves through the ringer because we always have to be better, we always have to be best. And yeah, so we have these experiences, like life sucker punches you when you're on the road to success and valuing your greatness. And when you start to have these moments of sanity, you like lose your job, or somebody dies, or all these tragedies start to happen. And that might not necessarily be as detrimental as those things. And that's another piece too, is not expecting things, but also not crawling in a hole and shutting the world out when these things start to happen. So processing grief, being true enough to yourself to value that it's okay how you feel, that we can't help how we feel, but we can help how we process them and how we react to them. So also with that, moving on, is concepts of true forgiveness. Holding grudges about things is something that's difficult. It's something that each one of us wrestle with, and it's difficult to process. The way that we view forgiveness, once again, is programmed not the best way. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like incorrect, but it's kind of incorrect. And we have this warped sense of forgiveness, along with like warped sense of love, warped sense of God, like all these kind of things. They were programmed garbage. And it's not that they don't exist, it's just that our concept of them is a little wonky and needs some tweaking. So forgiveness can definitely be a roadblock, a severe roadblock to where it is that we're trying to go. And the final piece to being true to yourself is the integration, is the balance of all of the aforementioned pieces that you see on the screen right now. So it's how you balance the balance and consistency are the best ways to describe it. And I would even actually go in a little bit further to incorporate the shadow side and balance out the totality of who you are, and lovingly observing and accepting and embracing the totality of what you are, the things that you like, the things that you don't like. You cannot find lasting peace if you're constantly shutting out pieces of yourself that you are not fully comfortable with. So, going on. Meditation. We already kind of went through the misconceptions already. You have the mental predisposition, there's the aversion because of the hippie kind of concepts. They're the stories that we tell ourselves about that it takes time that we don't have, and that it's actually just used for awareness. It's not used for enlightenment per se. That's kind of a byproduct. What is there is to actually observe what we perceive to be going on within ourselves, and our external world is actually a culmination of what is actually happening internally. We are creators of our world on a quantum level. I can go into that in way greater detail later on. But moving on, yes, meditation. It is used for awareness, taking inventory of what's going on. If you were not aware, you were not in control. Like I said, we create our existence, and what is going on within inside of us is a pretty good indicator, a roadmap, if you will, about where we are going and what it is that we are going to experience. Awareness shows us our power of choice through our feelings of light or heavy. That is a concept that I will keep going back to. It is one that you should reflect on multiple times a day, every day, for the rest of your life, to make sure that, like, what am I doing? Do I feel comfortable? What's going on here? What's taking emotional and mental inventory of what is going on inside of you? Because if you don't know what feels light or what's heavy, and if you're constantly trying to justify what is light or heavy, you're not going to gain solid ground within inner peace or whatever it is that you do in existence. So, the importance of consistency is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is basically the patterns cycles above and below 200 that I was talking about. When we have negative ones, they reinforce the negative experiences that we have. If they're positive, it's a lot easier. Once you bridge that gap, it's a lot easier to gain momentum and feel better about things, because your life experiences get easier, your interpretations of them get lighter. And so meditation is absolutely important for the neuroplasticity aspect of that. All it really takes is 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes, preferably 10, like 5 minutes in the morning before you start your day, and 5 minutes at night. And the way that I do it is I take a notepad and a paper, and pen and paper, and I sit there and try not to control my thoughts. I just write down what's important, things that I need to do or feel like I need to do, things that are bothering me, things that I would like to do, any spots of inspiration. And you do that every day for like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. You can split up, and you get an awesome map about who you are, where you're going, what your fears are, what it is that you need to work on, let go of, all that kind of stuff. So, purpose. Hallmarks. So in addition to the programming, we still get programmed throughout our lives. Just most of it was formative in the first few years of our lives. But our hallmarks, which come up in meditation, are crucial to understanding why we are the way that we are. There's a lot of rules and programming throughout the experiences that we've had growing up. Not all of them are bad. Not all of them are good either. Obviously, it's a mixed bag, and all of them are beautiful, if you will. They kind of contribute to the so be it, unique snowflakes that we have turned into. So, but these roadmaps will gain a greater perspective of purpose and where our rules came from. Even if we can't remember the programming that has happened, we get these cycles that kind of remind us. They kind of like, wake us up and shake us up and open our eyes to what things that we keep on struggling with. So heavy hallmarks indirectly show your purpose, or as entrepreneurs and other people like that term it, your why. Light hallmarks directly show purpose and your vision. So, what is your vision when you look back on your life, and what is it that you're passionate about and why? When do you remember being passionate about that? What are the kind of negative pieces? Like, are you passionate because you had an unfortunate experience that you want to give back? You want to um, have like a crusade, like, that you want to give back to the world, make sure that nobody else has like this uncomfortable experience that you were dealt with. But yeah, heavy hallmarks equal your why it is that you do things, but your light hallmarks directly show your purpose. What is your vision? What is it that you're striving for? Why do you get up in the morning? So, mindfulness, active meditation. Meditation maintains clarity of current status and purpose, as we said, viewing the world as symbols and signs and recognizing patterns. How you view your world, a lot of times we are reactive and we don't question much when we're being reactive. We're just like, this sucks, this person sucks, like, I hate this. It's not beneficial to get stuck there. It's good to understand from a light or heavy perspective whether it's helping or hurting you, whether you need to make some adjustments or cut something out. But when we start to not take the world as seriously and understanding that they are just symbols and signs to show us, when we start looking at things that are uncomfortable as opportunities instead of obstacles, when we start looking at them as opportunities to grow and be better, and to as an incentive to have a better life, to make better choices, becoming aware of the stories that we tell ourselves about people and things in context. So whenever something goes down, ask yourself, like, is it something that you've dealt with before? Does it feel like Groundhog Day? And if it does, then that's actually a good thing. You start to kind of rewire your brain to be like, oh, this happened again. Instead of being like, oh my God, this always happens, you can start to be like, interesting, this happened again. Although it's agitating, because it's agitating, it's trying to show me something. So it's like, what is this story that I've been telling myself? When was the first time that I remember even experiencing a context like this? And you can start to kind of pick away at like why things are the way that they are, instead of running from them or pretending like they don't exist. You can embrace the totality of your existence and the totality of who you are. Once again, cycles above and below 200, you start to see what are the stories, what kind of things are getting you locked into the cycles. Is it feelings of jealousy? Is there anger there? Is there fear? Fear is actually always underlying. Everything always stems from fear, but it's kind of what kind of fear. So, subconscious rewiring. Humility, knowing your true worth. So, self-entitlement and non-appreciation of the present. So, I feel like I've been seeing this so much now that recently there's just rampant self-entitlement and non-appreciation of the present. And if we ever want to have something of substance, something worth having, there's always some good to be found in the present moment. Always. It doesn't matter if you're sleeping under a bridge. You can at least be thankful for the bridge that you're sleeping under, to give you at least some semblance of shelter. And it's really just that simple shift in mindset. Gratitude, I mean, although it's been made to be cliche and kind of cheesy, it really is a staple. If you can't grasp onto that right now, then you can't progress onto better things. You can't experience something new and even more beautiful than what you've experienced before if you cannot appreciate the gifts that you have had, or that you have right now and have had. So true humility is living your purpose in the present moment. Nothing more, nothing less. True arrogance is thinking that you have control over the past and future. There's so much arrogance in that, like, we regret all the time, and it's like, it's already past. There's no reason to regret anything. If you had it to do over again and you would do it differently, that's good. It means that you learned something. So how can you actually truly regret it? And the future hasn't happened yet, so stop fearing it. The only control that you have is living in the present and being true to yourself in the present moment. So the victimhood and ego payoffs versus accountability. Oftentimes we don't want to be accountable for how we feel. We want it to be somebody else's fault, and that's a plague that afflicts so many people. And there's always an ego payoff for that victimhood thing. Like, what is it that you feel like, when you get these ideas of like feeling at the mercy of people and contexts? What is it? There's always like an ego payoff that you don't have to be, accountable to your actions and your choices within the present moment, and your responsibility to gratitude that you have for the good things that you have. Oftentimes humans push that away or pretend that it doesn't exist, but there's an ego payoff, and that's what's sad about it. Was when you put it in the bigger perspective, the ego payoff isn't, it's nothing. It's just mild comfort, if you could even term it that, so that you don't have to do the work of being accountable. But when you rise to the occasion and start doing the accountability of all the things that I'm talking about right now, your life changes drastically in miraculous and absolutely profoundly beautiful ways. So who are you not to be great? Stop playing the victim card. You're so much greater than that. You were not put here on this earth to suffer. And I know everyone's kind of getting like all sick and tired of the whole concept of like, everything happens for a reason. You're here for a reason. But you are, and you are that reason. Nobody else can define that for you. I mean, you can live the rest of your life in regret and pain and holding on to that, and playing small, playing little. Or you can step up, rise to the occasion, be accountable, and step into your greatness. Utilize the crap that you've been through to give back to everybody else, and in a profound way. And so moving on. So taking out the garbage, we're moving into the difficult aspects of the eightfold path, so to speak. So media is a big one. When you scroll through your social media, like, what is it that you see? What do you literally subscribe to? One of the things that I do, I mean, I use it for business now currently, but I mean, there was a point in time when I got so inundated with stuff and I was so miserable because all I saw was just how heavy the world was and how jacked up it is and how little I could really do. And I would just look every day about like, I'd try to like be outspoken, and I would attend protests and stuff like that, and it was like eating me up inside, and it's not contributing to inner peace at all. And the single most powerful thing that we can do is actually cultivate inner peace for ourselves, which is why this taking out the garbage concept is so extremely crucial, because the media, it also breeds judgment and comparisons, because then we're looking at things that we would like to do, because what makes the first four concepts of the Eightfold Path that I have, the knowing yourself, the first half, so easy is, we all know what we like. We all have like a vague idea, if not fully understand what it is that we're here to do. So when we look on media, we see all the things that we wish that we could do, that people are doing and being successful about, and then we don't do that for ourselves. We're just like, well, screw this guy. They're like, they're not as talented, or they're not as meaningful about it, and it's like, it doesn't get us anywhere. So anyways, it just cultivates, it disrupts our inner peace, which is the main point. And then the next one, 5 closest people. I'm sure you've heard it before, but your quality of life is the culmination of the 5 closest people to you. And that, there's no exception to that. When you put it into that, like in that light, and narrow it down to that, yeah, who is it that you're hanging around? I mean, how negative are they? Like, what are their perspectives on life? Like, if they're miserable and constantly struggling, they're broke, they're in and out of relationships, like they're sick all the time, like there's a reason for this, and it's not that you can't be present to them, but definitely take into account, value yourself, take into account what your boundaries are. Do not, cut out the people that do not give back. There are a lot of black holes out there. There are a lot of people playing the victimhood card that are just like these walking black holes that suck all the life out of everything. You want to cut these people out, and sometimes they're even family members, and that makes it really, really difficult. But you have to let these people go. I don't know. I just watched a Goalcast thing recently about this dude he ended up being successful in the end, obviously, since it was Goalcast. But his whole life, like, I mean, he wanted his father's approval, and he had become a millionaire, and then ended up spending all of his money to help his father out, who in the end died, and on his deathbed basically said that he couldn't think of anything that was praiseworthy of his son. Like, sometimes family members are the most caustic people, sadly enough, and it sucks because they dangle the family card, and I'm sorry, it's like you didn't have a choice in it. I don't mean to be as brutal as that, but when it comes to your inner peace, nobody's gonna choose it for you. And yeah, so where are you at? Like, what's the general location, city and town? Do you like where you live? Like, what's going on there? Job and contribution. Like, who is it that you're hanging around when you're doing stuff? What kind of stuff is it that you do? Does it bring light or heavy? Always light or heavy. So, and processing grief. So, we all deal with this at some point in time. It's very crucial that we know how to deal with this. Most people don't know how to deal with it, and that's the other thing. I feel like this is a huge part of my calling, is that the world doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. There are a lot of people out there right now, a lot of like entrepreneurs and life coaches that they want to focus on like the purpose and all the stuff and all like sunshine and roses and all that kind of stuff. That's good. That needs to be there. I am not knocking that. But when you just gloss over certain things that are like deep wounds, you can't just like be like, oh, just move on and, it's all right, whatever. It doesn't work. So be patient with yourself. Whenever there's like failure, or you're dealing with like the death of a loved one, which I have, and this is partly why it's kind of my crusade, is that like I have experienced a lot of death in my life, and it's rough when you're trying to do things and then people keep on dying, and you just like it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're dealing with clinical depression, and it's like you can't get out of bed, but you still have like this calling and this inner fight. So be patient with yourself, because grieving takes a little bit of time, and granted, you need to set aside the time. I have other videos on this too, that I'll go into greater detail in that, and have gone into greater detail with that. But grieving time and surrendering, make sure that there are a lot of rules, or as Vishen Lakhiani calls them, rules, bullshit rules or programming that don't serve us in regards to grief. So grieving time, surrendering, make sure that if it arises, the feeling of grief, that you make time for it, that you sit there, that you feel it, you let yourself feel it, and you don't judge it. A lot of times we have fear about whether it's ever going to end. Scientifically, you can only grieve 20 minutes at a time, and then you can ride it to a standstill. There will come to a point where there will just be this placidness and blank, and then you'll have a choice of whether you want to take up a victimhood stance again, or also the temptation of guilt gets a lot of people. Don't do that. The people that have passed on, they don't want you, they wouldn't want you to like be stifled by the guilt. They don't want your life ruined by their absence, because it's like an ego trick where people are like, oh well, if you're living your fullest life, then you're not like honoring them. You need to feel like you need to fully feel the grief. Not true. Let yourself feel whenever. It may or may not come back, but as the grief arises, the duration times for the grieving will become shorter, and the times in between the grieving times will, the intervals, if you will become shorter and shorter until you don't feel the grief anymore and it's transmuted into something that is more meaningful. So, and also forgiving the self. Sometimes with grief, there's like a lot of regret, a lot of could have, should have, would haves, and these don't serve anything. They're in the past. They're already done. And if you learn from them, they're lessons. And one thing that you can do that's really powerful is reflect on what you've learned from them and incorporate them. Be grateful for them, actually, over time. As unpleasant as they may be grateful and incorporate it into your actions. Be a living tribute of life and light and love and to that person. Incorporate their best qualities, the things that you loved about that person that have passed on. And also you can, once again, it's not just for like death of loved ones, even though that can be very crippling, but you can apply this stuff to concepts of like failure or anytime, any sense of loss. You can apply this stuff, and just as long as you're patient with yourself, you forgive yourself, you give yourself grieving time, you don't resist it. That's the most important thing. So, and true forgiveness. I also have like videos on this, but this really has to do with healing your projected shadow. I'm going to try and speed these up because I feel like I've kind of been going on for a little while. But healing your projected shadow. In a meditative state, you want to unleash your disdain on whoever you feel like has transgressed you, so to speak. You want to feel the pain. Once again, it's all about observance and ownership of the things that you feel, your emotions. You cannot help how you feel. So at the very least, you can be honest with yourself about how you feel about anything. If it's uncomfortable, it's trying to tell you something. If you're trying to resist it and run away, you're not learning anything from it. So what did you learn from the experience? Contemplate their past experiences. What was it that may have led up to them doing the things that they did that you feel like they did to you personally? Because very rarely is it personal. They might feel like it's personal. You might feel especially like it's personal, but once again, it's Brules. It's product of Brules. They probably see things a very specific way. Really, it comes down to if you were dealt the same exact cards as them, straight down to like where they were born, their family life, the life experiences that they had, every single thing, if you had dealt with, you would be them ultimately. And so it's that understanding that we are all just doing the best that we can, and then see it from their perspective. Hurt people. So moving on, and integration, balancing of the concepts. So when we balance these, we create contemplative living. We start to contemplate the totality of things. We start to, as we're not running away from things, we're meeting things head on. We start to unravel the snags that we get ourselves into, the cycles that are negative, that don't serve us, the feedback cycles of below 200. So creating a meditative home in a mindful world, like, when you're home, that you honor yourself, you envelop yourself with the things that you love, that you're passionate about, that you're true to your passion and source and purpose, and that you bring that out into the world, and that you live a mindful world, paying attention to the experiences that you have, the people that you're surrounded by, and reflecting on, what is it that you want to experience? Are you going in the right direction, or are you not? Knowing your purpose and worth. That's a huge thing, especially like trusting in said purpose, and then understanding that there is only one person quite like you. We often get into these like circles about whether or not we're as good as, you know, somebody else that's doing something similar. But the truth is, we are we can reach people. Like, okay, for instance, the people that we compare ourselves to, they will reach people and make an impact on parts of the world that we might not be able to. But vice versa, the same principle applies to us. So that is where we're lacking. There's some people that need your help right now. That whatever passion or calling that it is that you have, there are people, like, even if you're an artist, there are people that want your specific style of art that will speak to them. It doesn't matter what it is that you do, there's room for it. And not only is there room for it, it is needed. It is needed. You need to honor yourself. So, and rewire your rules. Where is it? When did you learn that you weren't enough? When did you learn that it's arrogance to be who you are, you know, unashamed and real? And also maintaining boundaries. Once you know your purpose and you've got your worth down, it's imperative that you maintain those boundaries so that people don't reinforce the crappy programming that you have accrued over years. You need to defend it at all costs. Light or heavy is your key to understanding how, or, you know, where you're at with that. Light or heavy tells you directly what it is that you need to do. If it's light, you need to go in that direction. If it's heavy, you need to cut that out. Transmute it, do something, but don't stay there. If it's heavy, it doesn't deserve your time. It really does not. Healing of wounds, of grief, and transgression. Those are serious blocks, obviously, that lead to depression or, like, you know, feelings of, like, vengeance or, you know, eye for an eye kind of thing. These things will trip you up because as you see yourself and as you act, you also see the world and vice versa. So it's imperative that you remove these blockages, that you understand when they arise, when it's like heavy instead of light, that like, where's this coming from? Don't judge it, but process it. And I throw in here like processing your shadow, because that's really imperative. For me, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm a lot of different things, but I identified with metal so much. I love death metal more than anything, and that's what's really like ironic, and I wrestled with that quite a bit in my life, because I was just this walking dichotomy. It didn't seem to fit, and now I'm, you know, later on in my life, I've seemed to kind of integrate the two comfortably. But I highly suggest, because we are symbolic beings, and we end up experiencing what is not, we project outwards that which we cannot own or accept. And because we cannot accept the world and or parts of ourselves, we project it outside of ourselves and we get more of that. So to me, it is very helpful. Like, metal has been my lifeline when I didn't have anything, or I felt like these principles weren't working as well because I didn't have the complete puzzle pieces that I'm giving you right now. Metal was my lifeline. So, you know, it can be tricky, and ego can trip you up quite a bit along the path. So I encourage people to find an art, or, you know, even martial arts, or like even an aggressive vinyasa flow or something in yoga, something that you can identify with, that speaks to your soul, that can harness that raw aggression and anger that comes up periodically in regards to, you know, life experiences and having to deal with like unpleasant things, because sometimes it's there and it needs somewhere to go and you can't fully be your true self and honor the totality of the light and darkness within yourself unless you're like honest and real with yourself about it, but also give it a safe place to go, which most people don't do, because it leaks out and people are horrible to other people, and that's a huge understatement, especially right now in this current existence. So yeah, find something that can harness your shadow safely and peacefully and transmute it into beauty and integrate that into yourself. And last but not least, consistency and practice. So consistency is of utmost importance. Really, like, oh my god, it's the balance of these things, but consistency. If you don't have consistency with balancing all these aspects, I know it can be a lot, but you're gonna find yourself with disrupted peace, and you're gonna start failing in different aspects, whether it's your finances or relationships, or whether you feel like you're failing yourself because you're not living up to your truest potential or being true to yourself. Uh, Consistency and practice. So that brings me to, there should be a link below this. So I have created a program. It's a 2-month long program. If you are interested, I will set up, well, you can schedule a consultation with me. I will go over what it is, where that you feel stuck, whatever's going on in your life, like what is it that you're dealing with, whether it's a death of a loved one, whether you lost your job, or you don't have, or you don't have a sense of purpose or whatever. We can get to the bottom of it. This is a free call, and so please take me up on it. We will get to the bottom of it. I'll see if this program, works well with you. But really, if I had things to do over, I would work with a mentor, because really the accountability and consistency is key in actually solidifying these things. And it takes time. It takes about, if you're really trying to get to the bottom of the root of your pain and why things are uncomfortable, or where it is that you're hitting a wall in your life, it really comes down to programming, and solid reprogramming takes about a couple of months, which is why I structured the course like that. So definitely click on the link, schedule an appointment with me. It's absolutely free, and I'm excited for your new life, because you're here for a reason. You weren't put here to suffer and deal with all this crap in like a heavy manner, to run away from it and sweep it under the rug. No, like, I'm here to help you, hold your hand, take you through this, to rewire your brain to live your fullest potential, the life of your friggin' wildest dreams. I'm excited for you, and I am excited to hear from you. And thank you so much for your time, and I'll be seeing you. Much love, guys.